freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 474 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by AZFirearmsAuctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is guns and the state government, and our guest is Michael Infanzon. Michael is the chief lobbyist for the Arizona Citizens Defense League and managing partner at Epic Policy Group, and handles government affairs for the Arizona Firearms Industry Trade Association.
Well, welcome back to the show, Michael.
It's good to see you guys.
You too. You know, I hear Dan read that list of things, and I'm like, how do you even have time to sit down and talk to us about all the things you do?
Where's the other 30 things that he does, too?
It's true.
He's involved with the motorcycle group. What do you do for the motorcycle group, Mike?
I'm their lobbyist.
Yep. See?
So, very active, involved guy. Go ahead, Michael.
I was in committee yesterday testifying on a veterans bill. So I represent Arizona veterans as well.
Yeah.
Well, we are blessed to have you. And full disclosure, I am on the board of the AZCDL, the Arizona Citizens Defense League, as are you. And so sometimes I'll slip into the language of we, right? Because I'm talking about a group that I am very passionate about and involved in. And so speaking of we, and both of us living in Arizona, we currently in the state of Arizona have a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate. But we also have a governor who has become famous for using her veto pen for all the things that we think we stand for, as far as, you know, our pro-gun rights. Now, I guess she will sign veterans things. She might sign motorcycle things. But when it comes to what the work the AZCDL does, she loves that veto pen. So how do you navigate that, where you can work with some people, you can't work with other people, and you know that all the good work you're doing on gun bills is going to land on the desk of somebody who's just going to strike it out?
Well, navigating our current political landscape, just landscape in general, especially when it comes to firearms related bills, the right to keep and bear arms, requires a combination of strategic coalition building, public engagement, and long-term legislative planning. That's the key to it. I never, expect things to happen overnight. I look at how can we impact the culture 3 to 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when we're all gone. What's our freedoms going to look like? So, given that the Republican majority in both chambers, which is great, we gained seats in this last election cycle. We can advance pro right to keep and bear arms legislation. But like you said, with a governor who has demonstrated a willingness to use her veto power very aggressively and stamp, veto, we have to be more tactical on how we approach legislative efforts.
So, Michael, you work with legislatures, and you talk to them about these bills and what's the harm and what's good in a bill. And I just wonder, is there anybody that talks to the governor, she's a person, she doesn't know everything. So, is there somebody that goes in there and can talk to her about the benefits of these bills?
Well, just every executive has a staff, or even legislators have staffs. So they'll get policy advisors. They'll get policy advisors who are specifically focused on what that elected official wants to do and the direction they want to do, from the president all the way down to city council. So the governor has staff that advises her on any particular bill. Now she has an agenda that she wants to do, or a policy stance. So it's a little bit different. It's being able to knock on the door and walk in and say, hey, governor, we want to talk to you about this. You can't do it. I've been trying for 2 years to try to even get a meeting on a variety of policy issues with her staff, and I have yet to get FaceTime with any of her staff on even just veterans issues or anything. So,
well, if you can't talk to the staff, then it's hopeless, right?
Oh, never. It's never hopeless. It's I have a faith that there's a hope that lies within us.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more that we can do. We just have to be very strategic about it.
Mm-hmm.
We focus on bills to protect the right and keep bear arms. And one of our legislators and I talk on a consistent basis, and we're always talking about we're not trying to advance the Second Amendment. We're just trying to take back what's been taken from us over 200 years. So I mean, it's plain and simple. We try to get measures related to self-defense, firearm safety education, protecting veterans' rights in firearms ownership. They tend to have a broader support. So those are the things that we can focus on now with a Republican majority in the legislature and a Democrat governor. There's amendment processes, and I take a long game approach, and that's the thing. We have to take a long-term approach, and if a bill gets vetoed, we can make sure we educate the public on it. We can mobilize grassroots advocacy, and we can make it a campaign issue. Furthermore, AZCDL has had a bill signed by 4 governors, 2 Republican and 2 Democrats. Mm-hmm. So, and even our current governor signed a pro 2A bill. I don't think she knew it, but the way strategically that we did it, it was a fingerprints bill. And one of the problems that we have in Arizona is delay in renewing your concealed weapons permit. Mm-hmm. Because if it's over a year or 2 years, you have to get your fingerprints redone. So we, Representative Wynn ran a bill for fingerprints to keep that for up to 5 years in the database. Well, now we can mitigate that lagging time for concealed weapons permits. That's the reason why we did it. It had other positive implications, but that was the intent, kind of underlying intent, was to help with the CCW process. So our Democrat veto happy governor actually signed a pro 2A bill without even knowing it.
Well, and that is what is so unfortunate, I guess, is the best word I can come up with, is that we really have come down directly on party lines when it comes to supporting or not supporting our right to keep and bear arms. And it absolutely should not be that way. We should not have allowed our right to keep and bear arms to become this political football, because every single legislator at every single layer of government takes the same oath on the same, to protect the same documents, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. It's crazy to think, if you pull back from, the political fighting and look at the principles and the values that our nation was founded on, that it really comes down to, if we don't have a majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate, that automatically tells us that we are going to struggle to keep our rights in place. It's actually insulting in a lot of ways for me, to me. But I will say that I just saw an article by Dr. David Yamani. He's been a guest on this show as well. He is a liberal professor, but he is pro rights, pro gun. He's not a politician, right? But he wrote an article saying that, the stereotype that everybody seems to think is the average gun owner, right? White, male, over 50,
Southern,
conservative, hmm?
from the South,
From the South, right?
drives a pickup truck, listens to country music. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not really who the average gun owner is anymore. And so I feel like the other side of this debate is going to have to rethink some of what they're doing. What do you say about all that?
Well, the fastest growing demographic in firearms ownership is urban African American women.
Yes.
Well, I don't think they listen to George Strait. They may, but I don't think so. It boils down to the constitutional values, like you said. And I tout on this all the time. It's our Second Amendment, but it's Article 2, Section 26 in our state constitution that we need to focus on. The right of the citizen to defend themselves, to bear arms, to defend themselves shall not be impaired. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on self-defense. Why do you own a firearm? Well, sporting reasons and hunting and things like that. But it boils down to, in your home, it's self-defense. When you carry on your person, it's self-defense. Law enforcement can't always be at all places at all times. It is our responsibility as individual citizens to defend ourselves, plain and simple.
Plain and
And
simple.
that's the kind of things that we need to educate our legislators on. We need to educate the public. It's not about being a gunslinger. It's about defending the ability to defend yourself. And we need to keep that momentum. And we need to ensure that every veto that the governor does just becomes a stepping stone for a stronger push in the future to take back what's been taken from us.
I agree.
All of Arizona, most of the citizens have guns. They're responsible gun owners, and the problem is they're silent. They're not being active with voting. They're not talking to their friends about who to vote for, and they're not having debates about who's good. And the thing is that our governor is supposed to be doing what the people want.
All the people.
All the people. And the
Not
problem is the other side is they've proven to be a louder voice, but a smaller group. At least in Arizona, we have more gun owners than we have non-gun owners. I would think, don't we, in Arizona?
Well, people like me never respond to those kinds of surveys. So, do we know?
Got lost in a boating accident. I don't know. There's last estimate, there's about 4.5 million firearms owners in the state of Arizona. Okay. That's more than half. So Dan, you hit, if those estimates are correct, you're right, because we have about 7 million people in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we don't speak up.
Yeah, like the AZCDL, we should have at least those 4.5 million people as members, right? Because they have such a vested interest in protecting their rights. But truly, it should be all 7 million people should be concerned about protecting their rights, all of them, not picky choosy of which ones.
Well, you hit on it's a really good thing to hit on. Okay. I have Democrat friends, very liberal Democrat friends who are firearms owners that wouldn't join AZCDL because we are no compromise. The Gun Owners of America say we're the no compromise organization. We align with GOA very well because AZCDL does not compromise.
Mm-mm.
There are bills that aren't typically Second Amendment that will weigh in on to protect ultimately somebody's right for self-defense.
Absolutely.
So, and that is not, it may be middle of the road. I've been called a rhino and I'm more conservative than most people. you know, it is what it is. So, all we can do is explain what we do, explain who we fight for,
Mm-hmm.
and tell folks it's not about ethnicity. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about politics. This is
Mm-hmm.
about policy.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And really that is a beautiful segue to the next question that I was going to tee up for you. And that is that, when you're reading bills and you read every bill that comes across, which is in the thousands, I believe this year, right?
We're a little over 1,600 right now.
1,600 bills. That is
I can't even read a
insanity.
comic book.
Like, do we need 1,600 new laws over us? But so to grasp what is going on in each bill and what are the stated consequences versus the kind of the aspirational consequences versus the unintended consequences, that is a lot of parsing and piecing together. And you really have to have a broad understanding of not only what is already a law, but what a new change can bring. And if we don't have people like you in there, because the average person is busy with soccer practice, right? And just getting through our week. So if we don't have you in there, we're going to pass a lot of feel good laws that actually don't do good. And I wonder if you, oh, you're chuckling. Go ahead.
No, I'll get to it in a second.
Well, I just wonder, is there a bill on the top of your head? There is one on mine that really kind of fits that. We should do something. It would feel good to do something, but it actually would do harm to our freedoms, our individual liberties, and our right to protect ourselves with whatever it is we need to use to protect ourselves.
Well, I was laughing because there's a bill that's been introduced to make howdy the official greeting of the state of Arizona.
No way. Stop it.
Dead serious. Howdy will
We
be the official greeting of the state of Arizona.
we need a lot. We need a bill for that. Okay.
Well,
All right.
like
Fair
I
enough.
think last year or the year before, lemonade was made the official beverage. And margarita almost made it.
I,
So
that I would have maybe voted for, but okay.
right,
All right. So howdy.
Howdy.
Gotcha. I'll have to put it into my lexicon. All right.
So
yeah,
if you get pulled over by a police officer and you don't say howdy, then they're going to arrest you.
probably depends on where you're at, what you're driving.
Yeah.
So back, you're asking for one particular bill that's a feel good bill, but it really does nothing.
It actually
Um,
harms us
yeah.
if we were to go down that road.
Well, there's a bill. It's already DOA. It's already dead on arrival. We've already
Mhm.
killed it.
Mhm.
Um, Democrat representative introduced a bill to ban bump stocks.
Mhm. Right.
Well,
That's already been
yeah,
answered. Asked
yeah,
and answered at the federal level.
you're right. So I mean, it, this is the second session in a row that she's introduced it.
Well,
Wow.
well,
So I mean, it's a waste. It's a waste
What
of
would be
time and effort.
what would be the reason for a person to do that? Just to get their name on a bill?
Yes.
and I'm sure that happens a
Well,
lot.
howdy to that.
With 1,600 bills, there's got to be a fair amount of that. So, the one that I had in my mind was actually introduced by people that would normally be pro individual freedoms and pro gun and pro all those things. And it has to do with brass knuckles. And just the previous year, we already dealt with nunchucks, and we decided as a state, right, we voted in that nunchucks are legal to own and
Illegal
have,
or legal?
are legal, right? And now we're dealing with brass knuckles. Like what is causing this kind of stuff to be bubbling forward? It
Well,
feels, you think it's just the feel good thing.
well, yes and no. Okay, the youth violence in the East Valley with the Gilbert Goons, um, the Preston Lord being beaten to death by a group of individuals. And that's been addressed through legislation as well. Representative Gress introduced a bill that it's an aggravated felony to rat pack somebody. Not Sinatra them, but
Yeah. Different kind of rat and different
right.
kind of pack.
Well, the two brass knuckles bills that were introduced. One's from a Democrat and one's from a Republican. They're almost identical. I weighed in on it before it was even discussed with sponsors, before the session with the lobbyist that's trying to bring it forward on behalf of a family in the East Valley. And I feel for the family, I really do. But
Absolutely.
There's unintended consequences to this. There are individuals that, the way the language is written, that there are, and I know you've seen them, gloves that people wear with the hardened knuckle protection.
Right.
Under
Motorcyclists wear them.
Right. SWAT wears them.
Mm-hmm.
When they go into into buildings and things. They're under the language for the proposed legislation, those would be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
You could be charged with a felony just for wearing a pair of gloves.
Mm-hmm.
What about the collector knives, the military World War I and II knives, trench knives?
They would be illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what isn't it illegal to beat somebody anyway with any kind of tool? So a pipe or a hammer or whatever?
Extremely, yeah.
Yeah. And so if they outlaw brass knuckles, will they start making them out of steel, or will they change the design a little bit? Or what about a guy that wears 3 rings on his finger? Mm-hmm. 3 rings, some do, mm-hmm. and those could be considered a weapon, knuckles, right?
Right.
So it's very.
And so without that layer of understanding and that level of understanding, it would be easy to get caught up in this poor family and they just want something done. But as you said, one of these young men were beaten to death, but brass knuckles weren't even part of that incident. They were part of another one where a young man was very seriously injured, but it's the behavior. It's never the tool. And so many people want to make it about the tool. And as Danny said, the next thing it'll be, hammers. We just can't have these hammers out and available, in Home Depot where just anybody can walk in and buy one, right? And then we get rid of those, and then it's like, well, loose rocks, because the very first murder that was ever recorded in human history, right, in scripture, there was a rock involved. We cannot have loose rocks laying around. Well, it just never ends.
Look what we've done with spray paint. You cannot go in and buy a can of spray paint without giving your driver's license. And they write down your name because of various issues, from graffiti tagging to huffing paint.
Mm-hmm.
Glue's the same way. You can't buy certain kinds of glue. You go to Lowe's or Home Depot, it's locked up.
And so, when we try to make it about the inanimate items and objects, I just think it'll never end. We really have to address it as a human behavior issue, deal with the human behavior, deal with the human element. But that's harder, it's more complicated. It takes more time. And so everybody wants that quick fix, right? And I can just write this law and now this thing will be illegal. And when one of the legislators asked me about, because as my role in the AZCDL asked me about, well, will you support this bill for the brass knuckles? We'd sure like your support, I said, well, you would actually be disenfranchising people.
But what was it, a legislator or a former legislator?
I forget now. We were standing in line, entering the building, and I forget. But
I thought
do you think it was a former?
I thought it was a former legislator that is currently a lobbyist.
Oh, possibly.
Because that's who I spoke with.
Okay. And so I said you could actually end up disenfranchising people, that is their only way to defend themselves. Right? They want to look at every tool as something that's an offensive tool, right? An attack tool, an assault tool. But it really is about the heart and the intent of the human. And so I said, why would you want to disenfranchise someone? And he said, well, that using brass knuckles, that would be up in close quarters. And you wouldn't want to have to use a rock, would you? And I said, well, what if that was the only thing I did have up against somebody that was attacking me? And I've been arbitrarily disenfranchised, and told, no, no, you can't. I want to be able to access whatever I need, brass knuckles, a rock, whatever I need. But no, of course, I don't want to be, to answer his question. No, I don't want to be
that brings up a point.
in a
It's just
situation like that.
so the average person would say, yeah, I don't care if you outlaw brass knuckles. Go ahead and outlaw brass knuckles. And then in the next thing is the hammer. And then the next thing is
Yeah, no, thank you.
They did.
I don't want to have to climb back up that slippery slope.
They're doing that with guns. If you look at all the laws that's been passed in the last 30 years, they go to the gun owners and say, well, you don't need a semi-automatic gun because all you do is duck hunt, right? I use a double barrel shotgun. Well, then you won't care if we outlaw these guns, right? No, it doesn't mean I don't care about AR-15.
Don't compromise.
That's right.
Because
we don't.
There is a national organization that consistently compromises our freedoms.
And that's why we are where we are today. Because if you look at all the gun laws, I would say that over 90% of them are against our Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They are.
Mike, I've talked to you quite a few times, and I just want to ask you a question. So you're a lobbyist, and you're a paid lobbyist, and you go and you talk to the people about these bills. Have you ever had one that you didn't agree with, but you were asked to represent?
A client?
Yeah. So you're a lobbyist for a group, and there's a bill that they want to go through, but you don't feel good about that bill. Do you talk to them to try to get it to understand why, or what do you do about that?
I have dropped clients that I did not agree with philosophically.
Okay.
So bottom line is I have left money on the table and walked away from it. And we're talking six figures, because I didn't agree with them philosophically.
Well, I know you very well, and I know your character, and I know that money is not the only, not the main thing, but it would be hard sometimes. I mean, like I said, most of the laws that are being introduced, they're not good laws. Well,
that's why we've got Michael, because he understands them. So speaking of that, what could you toss out maybe your top and bottom, your best and worst, maybe three bills?
I put that together for you this morning.
Okay.
Top three, HB 2022, School Safety Employee Certification and Policies, introduced by Representative Bliss out of LG1, Yavapai County. This is the Save Our Children School Safety Program. We took the Faster Saves Lives program and said, okay, here's the parameters and here's the training aspect of it. What we want to do in Arizona is establish a fund so those who go through that program can be reimbursed, staff, teachers, things like that. It's not about implementing the Faster Saves Lives in the schools. It's about reimbursement fund. That's all that bill is. And people are all up in arms. Well, you're going to put guns in school. No, this is about reimbursing somebody who goes through this program. So that is probably one of the best bills that I've seen this year so far. It's about employee training. It's about making sure that those, and we have school districts in Arizona that allow their staff to carry firearms concealed discreetly on campus. So this gives an employee training, emergency preparedness, crisis response, de-escalation. But the cost of training costs money, and it boils down to that. This allows those staff members who are not making $500,000 a year to be able to go and get reimbursed for $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 worth of training, so it doesn't have to come out of their pocket in the long run.
Did it pass?
It passed the House. It's on its way over to the Senate.
What do you think about the governor?
Oh, it's absolute veto.
Absolute veto.
Yeah.
No,
That is terrible. That is terrible because there's the stop the bleed. As you said, it's all the things. And just because you train somebody in firearms doesn't mean that they're going to use it at their school, right? But if they're at a school this year, next year, whenever, now they're trained. How is that a bad thing?
I
It's just
pray,
reimbursement for training that will save lives.
I pray that anybody who goes through this training would never have to use it.
Amen.
That's the
Any
biggest
of
thing.
it.
Same with the seatbelt.
Right.
You pray that you don't have to. The thing is that everybody thinks it's about firearms, and what Cheryl just pointed out, faster saves lives. If you just took the medical training, that alone, how many times we've seen incidents? I heard I heard a voice one time. One of the incidences where a person was shot in not a critical place, but bled to death because the teacher didn't know what to do with the kid.
Didn't know how to put a tourniquet
And it
on.
was on his foot. I think he got shot in the foot and it killed him in the foot.
Or like leg, maybe.
Right.
But yeah.
And so, why not give that? And besides that, school's about education. And if a teacher wants to further their education, why not let them further it in whatever direction they're going? It may be pottery,
Absolutely.
whatever, but they should be helped with
I
that.
love it.
Yep. Yep.
All right. What else?
Second bill, Senator Gowan. We approached him, and we've been fighting. AZCDL has been fighting preemption violations across the state, from the city of Phoenix, sending firearms to Ukraine, to we have litigation going on. Go Water's representing the Go Water Institute's representing AZCDL and one of our members against Pima County for a preemption violation. We City of Sedona, Eloy, Goodyear,
right out here by us. Goodyear. Yes.
Yeah. Well, there's 13 or 14, if memory serves me correctly, municipalities across the state that have preemption violation laws on the books that most of them don't know. So
preemption is kind of an inside baseball word. The average Joe out there doesn't know what that means.
Okay, the preemption violation now, it's the municipalities, counties or cities cannot make a more restrictive law for the right to keep and bear arms than what the state has.
They can't preempt law that has already been established. So that's why it's called preemption.
Yes.
But what did Goodyear do?
Same thing as Sedona, right?
Yeah. Well, Goodyear's bill or Goodyear's ordinance has been on the books since the 80s. So it's buried in their ordinances. They didn't even know. I talked to their city attorney. He didn't even know it was on the books. So, and they're going to repeal it next time they do their city ordinances. They're going to just take it right off the book. So they're all for it. But it was that you couldn't carry a firearm in public.
Whoa.
In a constitutional carry state, Goodyear is like, but not here. That's cute.
But it was way before. So I mean, it is what it is. So, and we have a very strong preemption statute in our state. I wanted mess around and find out. This is my mess around and find out bill.
Fiddle around and find out it's still FAFO.
Yes,
you say it that way.
Yes. There's the cities or municipalities can be fined $50,000 of state match funds for that, but there's no consequences for the elected officials to keep trying this. Who cares? The taxpayers are paying that. So what this bill, SB 1705, does is if an elected or appointed government official or administrative agency head knowingly and willingly violates the preemption law, they could levy a civil penalty of up to $5,000 against that individual. That cannot be paid from taxpayer money. So it's got to come out of their own pocket. So
put some skin in the game for them.
Wait a minute. She's already got her pin out.
Who?
Veto pin.
Oh.
She's already got it out because that puts her in a situation in some ways, But I agree. I think it should be. Why aren't they held accountable for it? Because they don't care. It doesn't.
Taxpayers get harmed by the law, right? unconstitutional law, and then we get harmed in our taxes, our tax dollars, because then we have to pay the penalties. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So this takes care of
I
that.
hope that
But
goes through.
it's knowingly and willfully violating this, and a court has to find that person guilty of knowingly and willfully violating the law. Okay,
Well,
so
and
it's
that's
not
hard when something's been on the books since the 80s. So I don't know how we would navigate that, except if it was like the city prosecutor who was pushing it forward on somebody, then maybe
well.
He'd have
they would be knowingly
Yeah,
and willfully.
here's the hypothetical. Um, you know, City XYZ decides to pass a law that we don't want firearms within our city limits at all. You can't even own one, have one in your house. That's kind of the extreme, but the city attorney will make any ordinances or laws that go through. They have to go through a rules process where is this ordinance or law constitutional?
Mm-hmm.
And the city attorneys or county attorneys will say yes or no, or maybe it could be open to litigation and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
If the city attorney says to that city, you know what, this could be a violation of state statute by the city doing this, and the city officials say, we don't care, we're going to do it anyway. That's knowingly and willfully violating the preemption statute.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Wow.
Understood. All right. What's number 3 before we move on?
SB 1014, prohibited weapons muffling device repeal. This will actually, Texas has it on the books that if a suppressor is manufactured in the state of Texas and doesn't leave the state of Texas, it is legal in the state of Texas.
Okay.
Senator Rogers introduced this bill, and she's got a couple very, very good right to keep and bear arms bills and going through this year. But that's all it does. It allows hunters and people who want to go sport shoot to be able to use a muffling device that is manufactured in the state of Arizona, that stays in the state of Arizona. And this puts it in line with federal statute as well.
What do you mean by that?
Currently, suppressors are prohibited under state statute, even though preemption of federal law supersedes our state statute. So it's legal under federal law, so it's legal in our state. This actually brings us that you still, if you want to take it out of state, you still have to get a tax stamp for it and things like that. But owning one in the state of Arizona is not a gray area. It wouldn't be a gray area anymore.
Wow. So, but federally, you have to have a tax stamp.
Yes.
Federal.
Yes.
You're saying if it never leaves the state of Arizona because it was made here and it's owned here and it's used here.
And because the feds have no business because it's not crossing the state line.
Right.
Has Texas been successful with that?
Yes and no. There is a gentleman who was manufacturing made in Texas suppressors, selling them to law enforcement and manufacturing for their highway patrol and things like that, was raided by ATF about almost 2 years ago. And bank account, taken, home taken, everything, put in jail, and he's never been charged with a crime.
Crazy. And they do that. They flex like that, and it scares everybody from doing anything.
Here's the danger. Let's say I was a manufacturer, so let's say I make suppressors in Arizona. I can't control what somebody does with it once they take it out of my premises. So if they take it to another state and they get caught with it, federals can come after me because I sold a suppressor that went out of the state, even though I didn't have control of it.
Well, it's the thing that people don't realize when it comes to parts. You can manufacture parts. You cannot manufacture firearms and sell firearms without an FFL. You can sell parts without an FFL. If I wanted to make triggers for AR-15s, I could manufacture those all day long.
Right.
Right.
And I can sell those all day long. It's not illegal to sell those.
Right.
Once I put an AR-15 together, then I have to have an FFL to sell it.
Right. You can put it together for yourself legally.
Yes.
You just can't
Well,
sell it.
I can see how that law would be good for, like, say me, I want to I make a suppressor and I'm not taking it out of the state. I'm protected. That's fine. But for a manufacturer in Arizona to make a suppressor, and the fact that one may leave the state could be a touchy situation.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy in Texas, maybe one of theirs left the state.
It didn't.
It didn't.
Nope.
ATF was just over flexing like they've been
Yes,
doing
they
for the
do.
past few years. And then
That's
it
interesting.
destroys lives. It costs thousands upon thousands of dollars
Mm-hmm.
just for, to find out, oh, they did the wrong thing anyway. Anyway, we could go down that rabbit hole, but I'm worried about our time. And do you have another one for us?
I have one more good one. SB 1020, disruption, educational institution, concealed weapons. This would allow CCW holders to be able to carry at student at college who's over 21, has a CCW, will be able to carry on campus. Biggest reason for that is most housing is on campus, or even off campus housing is still owned by the university, and there's no way that even if you have a CCW, to be able to have a firearm in your own apartment,
right,
if you have off campus housing.
Wow.
Right. And I was an adult going to college. I didn't go to college until I was in my 20s. And I went to night school, and I went to rural colleges, and I went to urban colleges. And, on this side of the sidewalk, I'm a perfectly normal, trained, moral, legal human being. I cross the sidewalk onto property, you know, university property. Now I'm a felon, right? And this just removes that barrier, that arbitrary barrier that the bad guys, that's what they're looking for, right? If you're a predator, you're looking for the defanged,
Well,
cats.
I've said it in committee before. I was in the Marine Corps infantry for almost 8 years. I'm a combat veteran. When I went to law school downtown Phoenix, because that's where the law school campus is, I was not comfortable leaving my firearm at home.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Sorry, I can't imagine somebody who doesn't have my experiences.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I would like to make a comment on that.
Okay.
So if you are a concealed carry, if you have a concealed carry permit, you should be able to carry a firearm anywhere.
Mhm.
Even if there's a federal building, they should have lockers that when you go to the security, you can lock it. And then when you're done, even at the airport, when I get ready to fly in an airplane, I should be able to take that to the security station, put it in a locker, leave, come back, get out of the locker and go. Because between getting out of my car to go to the airport, something could happen. If you have a concealed carry permit, you should be able to carry anywhere.
I agree with that.
All right. Well, we have to start wrapping up. We are coming very close to the wire on our time. If you had one more to throw at us before I go to my final question.
Let me just kind of go over real quick a couple bad bills.
Okay.
Okay. Severe threat order of protection. It's red flag bill. That's HB 2211. Everybody knows what the red flag bills are. There is one to repeal our duty to retreat, HB 2529. That one's been killed as well. Right now, we don't have a duty to retreat.
Right.
This would make it that you have to run away. Really bad bill, HB 2618, voluntary prohibited possessor. That means if you can voluntarily become a prohibited possessor, but there's no way to get your name off the list.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple bills that were interesting. One that has been withdrawn from committee, HB 2261, medical marijuana fee exemptions for veterans. Key for that is once a person purchases a medical marijuana card, they are on the prohibited possessor list on the or they could be on a prohibited possessor list on the federal level. Exactly. So if you want to go purchase a firearm, you wouldn't be able to purchase one. You're giving up your Second Amendment rights. just by getting a medical marijuana card. So,
Yeah, that's a
and
sneaky one.
yeah, I don't mind that bill, but there needs to be some warnings, adequate warnings for those.
Yeah.
Last one that's going to be in committee next or tomorrow. HCR, it's a referendum referring it to the ballot 2037 by Representative Colden is prohibited weapons definition repeal. It takes away every prohibited weapon in the state of Arizona. No weapons will ever be prohibited.
That's a good one. That's one we like.
Yes, it's one we thoroughly love.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's great.
That's awesome.
It's that here, you want to start doing this? Boom.
Prohibitive weapon. That weapon could mean brass knuckles, pocket knife, gun, whatever, right? Or did he say firearms?
It's a prohibited weapon. This is general election ballot carry the question related to prohibited weapons by striking the definition of prohibited weapon, exclusion from the definition of trafficking, classification of misconduct pertaining to manufacturing, possession, transporting, or selling a prohibited weapon, and the exclusion as it applies to the gifted, devised, or descended merchandise of an authorized manufacturer or dealer in prohibited weapons. Modifies the definition of simulated explosive device to include any item that is bomb, grenade, or rocket with a propellant charge of more than 4 ounces, or a mine that is explosive, poison gas, things like that. So it actually has to be a simulated explosive device. It has to actually work. So, I have a.
That's a little squishy ball, right?
Yes, it is. But I do have an inert grenade that is illegal in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, we have got to start wrapping up. But what I did not want to forget to mention is that you are going to be one of the speakers this year at the big rally. It has previously been called the Celebrate and Protect the Second Amendment Rally. This year, it has been sponsored hugely by Gun Owners of America. They have changed the name to the GOA 2. What is it? The GOA Arizona Freedom Festival. And it is on Saturday, March 1st, across the street from our Arizona State Capitol at Wesley Bolin Plaza. What do you think, just briefly, what do you think you're going to be talking to the very sizable crowd out there about?
Freedom isn't free.
The Buckle 5, isn't it?
Depends on what movie you're watching, I guess.
Well, no, actually, I'm going to be talking about that freedom's a team sport. That if we don't all get together and work towards taking back what's been taken from us, then we will never get our freedom back the way our founding fathers intended it to be.
Well, Michael, you need to tell people how they can get a hold of you.
epicpolicygroup.com. I'm on Twitter or X at Infanzon, my last name. Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's usually my first or last name, or just if you do my last name, it usually comes up.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for all that you do. We are blessed to have you in our state and working on these important issues. And I look forward to seeing you out there on Saturday, March 1st for the Freedom Festival.
Well, we'll see you before then, but yes.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Thanks,
Have a great
Michael.
day, guys.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
We could go on and go on with this.
We so
There's
could.
So much I want to talk about the suppressor thing.
Hours upon hours, but we don't have it. We'll
Nope.
have him back on. Just want to dive right in and say thank you so much to our great guest, Michael Infanzon, and thank you to all of our amazing viewers and listeners. Wherever there is internet, we have people who are hungry for the information that our subject matter experts bring, and we are so grateful. We are so thankful. If you want to go back and listen to, or actually watch this video or any of our videos, you can go to Rumble, right? You can go to YouTube, you can go to Gunstreamer. And when you go to those platforms, please click the notifications and the subscriber button because that tells those platforms that this is valuable information for you and keeps you on top of the list and in the know as soon as there's a new show posted. If you want to listen to the audio only version, then go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, click the on demand tab, and
Binge listen to your heart's content, darling.
and if you want to see links and works of all of our guests, go to the guest tab. It is an ever-growing body of subject matter experts that you can find there. And when you spend time there, we don't hate that. All right, I want to talk about some organizations that support the work that we do. One is Locked in Grip, lockedingrip.com. It's a liquid shooting sports chalk. That sounds like a tongue twister to me sometimes. And so it is the no slip, better traction, heightened connection for safer, faster shooting because it's all about safety. You always want to be as safe as possible out on the range. Get yourself some and your favorite range buddy. If you ever do have to be in a self defense encounter. None of us want that. We train for it, but we don't want that. If you find yourself having to defend your life with whatever tool it is, brass knuckles, firearm, knife, whatever it is, you know the legal aspect is coming. It is coming. And so you want to have an attorney on retainer. So please go to attorneyoonretainer.us/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio. We get a small piece of any new membership that you join. And we, in full disclosure, are members ourselves. I am just going to double check that I said that right. Yes, it is attorneysonretainer.us/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio. And if you like supporting America, right? American jobs on American soil, making American-made products, then you will want to take us up on this invitation-only shopping network. It is patriothousehold.com/GFR. All the stuff that you buy at the big box stores, your shampoo, your laundry soap, your snacks, even awesome steaks, roast beef, hamburger items, ground beef items. You place your order online, it shows up on your doorstep. It's simple, it's high quality, it's convenient. patriothousehold.com/GFR. We get some small piece of every order you place to help fuel the work that we do, as well as the Second Amendment Foundation gets a small piece, and they are fighting for our rights in the courts all across this nation. All right, Dan, until next time, what are we going to do?
Gonna pray that I get a steak tonight from them.
You know what? That could very well happen. That's a good prayer. Maybe we're also going to pray for our nation.
Yes, we'll pray for our nation, pray for our leaders, even the ones that we do not
like.
I can't say that. the ones we don't like. Yes.
That was quite painful for him.
Yes.
I could feel the pain coming off of him saying that. I think especially we should pray for the ones who are lost, right? They're doing work that maybe it feels good to them, but it's not actually doing good. Yeah. All right. Until next time, be good to each other. Have a great week and God bless.
Bye-bye.